Before you guys got CC, you passed on the Santana deal and told us later on that you knew CC was coming on the free agent market the next year, and you had an eye towards that. How much of this winter do you think could be with an eye on the future? This doesn't seem to be the strongest free agent market outside of your own guys, basically. How much does that factor into what you do this winter as well?
I don't know yet. I mean, again, it's premature because we haven't had those meetings. I mean, in the Santana case, that was a trade that we were going to have to, take four. At least three of the four were significant assets from the franchise, and I felt that hate to turn the clock back, but I didn't think that the Santana situation was going to get us where we needed to go alone, because then we still had other issues. So a year later, we were able to have time to fix some of those issues as well as secure CC, and then the puzzle pieces and the picture form was obviously much brighter. I'm not in a position to answer that question right now because I don't know. What's available off the trade market yet, and so we'll see.
Back left, Cash.
Cash, could you tell us about your evaluation about Ichiro?
Sorry, the question again?
Could you tell us your evaluation about
my
Ichiro?
evaluation of Ichiro? Obviously he's a tremendous defender. Singles hitter, great athlete, steals bases, so, he can certainly disrupt the defense, and so that's my evaluation of him. When he's going well, he can obviously change the game for you.
So what's the expectation next year about his role?
Don't know yet. Again, we'll go through the process, and my expectation is he's going to give us everything he's got, and I know that he will do that. But what the role is going to be, I think it depends on the personnel that we have, and I don't know what that's going to be yet.
Sweeney sitting down on the right, Cash.
Brian, you mentioned that left side of the infield is a priority for you. You also said you're expecting Derek Jeter back to what he was, and you're operating on the assumption that Alex is here until you're told otherwise. So what are you prioritizing? You prioritize more sufficient backups to those spots?
Well, I think it's just an open-ended question. We have, obviously, Derek coming back from his injury, so what's that going to look like? We have, Alex's current situation playing out, whatever that's going to be. So, I just pointed out there's an uncertainty there. There's an uncertainty at second base. So 3 of our 4 spots in infield, you have questions that need to be answered. Some, more predictable than others, maybe. But it's one of those stay tuned. You got to wait and see how things play out.
I understand you couldn't predict all the injuries that you had this year, but is there a concern that you need to have more experienced backups at certain positions this year?
I don't know if it's more experience. I just want quality ones. You would love to have as much young as you can possibly have. If it's good. And if it's not, that's when, you've seen us do in the past, the Chavez's and things of that nature. And so if you have a right-handed hitting power third baseman, you'd love to have an alternative left-handed hitting, option. So when you pick and choose when you want to rest a player like an Alex, you can run the alternative out there more for matchup purposes and stuff like that. And typically the bench is a veteran situation because the younger players aren't used to sitting around and knowing what they need to do to be prepared. That's always an adjustment and a growth period that takes place over time with playing. But bottom line is the bench typically is experience, and but you'd want to have a good quality, strong bench without a doubt, and that's always been an effort. So.
And just one more for me: how strongly are you personally committed to that 189 when you're talking about recommending things? I mean, it's not your money. I mean, you want to field a championship team. So, I mean, are you going to be influenced by maybe not trying to go after something because that 189 is there, or are you just going to push for whatever you think you should?
Well, I kind of always do that. Whether it's, I've been in many situations where the budget said one thing, and then I'd go to ownership, whether it was Andy Pettitte trying to get him out of retirement, or hey, we can do the following plus. I remember the wrestling match with, we signed Teixeira, then got Andy, that was extended, that those situations happen a lot, but it just has to present itself as something that has a realistic chance for you to do, and that it makes sense. It's got to be something that you like, something that you believe in, something you think it could be an important piece for us, and then you share your thoughts with ownership on that. And most of the time, they say yes. Most of the time, so and we go from there. So it's a goal that I'm charged with. If possible, it's not like I'm going to get a red star or something like that if I reach the goal. It's an important goal, but it's not a mandate. And so if something presents itself over the course of time, whether it's this winter or during the summer at the trade deadline, that's going to put that in jeopardy. I suspect that's going to happen. A conversation will happen, and Hal Steinbrenner will make whatever the decisions are best for the franchise in the short and the long term, whatever that's going to be. But I know that it's a goal and it's not a mandate, and I know that his effort and interest is filling a championship club and bringing another championship here and adding to the trophy case. I know that's just the bottom line. So,
right next to Sweeney, Ed.
Brian, with yours is a forever stressful job, but with all of the player movement and everything else that you went through, was this different than any other year you've ever sat in the chair?
No, I can't. I mean, different in the fact that you're dealing with whether it's this or that. We've been fortunate. I can tell you this. We've been really fortunate for a long time to avoid what took place this year. We've stayed relatively healthy. I don't know how many years I've done this, 14 or 15 years, whatever the time frame has been as GM. We've stayed relatively healthy, and that has benefited us in that win column and in the playoffs, and getting us from start to finish. What happened this year has happened to other clubs. It's derailed them. They've been the affected. We've benefited. I remember we played the Braves in the '96 World Series. They did not have David Justice, so the Braves weren't as good as they could have been in that series. We won. Braves didn't sit there and say injuries prevented us from winning. Bottom line is you have to put together an organization from top to bottom, and it all comes together. Some years it's obviously better than others. This was a tough year. This year is my responsibility as general manager, and I take full responsibility for that. But what that means, that's up to ownership. But at the end of the day, my job is always to fix problems. We had a lot more to fix on the run, but that's just the job description. So was I busier on the waiver wire than I have in years past? Busier making phone calls and trying to fix shortstop and third base and outfield or DH, looking for right-handed bats against left-handed pitching more so than in past years? Yeah, the answer to that question is yes. But the job description is still the same. So that's what you're supposed to be doing. So it just, there's more of it this year, but I didn't feel like it was. It's just what you're supposed to do. It's whatever GM's doing. They're all trying to do the same thing. And hell, I would have had more waiver claims if I got awarded the claims. I had some guys that you guys didn't even realize that we tried to get that we couldn't because somebody else popped them and they had a lower standing than we did. So there would have been more guys running through here probably if somebody else didn't, have a lower record and put a claim in like we did, and they just got awarded the player and we didn't. So
Joel and a few more against the wall, Cash.
What are your medical people telling you about where Teixeira and Pineda are? And I wonder if you could frame how important those two players in particular are to you putting together a 2014 team.
Michael Pineda finished healthy, and so in our conversations with Larry Rothschild and Gil Patterson, Larry, our pitching coach, and Gil's our pitching coordinator, that the biggest and most important thing would be allow Michael, after, say, a 13-month rehab or, between rehab and pitching and stuff for well over a year straight plus, that the rest was the biggest thing that, would benefit from him. So we shut, obviously, him down as a healthy player in the end. And he'll compete for a job in spring training. He's got options. I don't think it's healthy for anybody to guarantee anything. So I'm not going to sit here just because he's Michael Pineda and we have high hopes to say, hey, we can pencil him into our rotation. He's got to obviously show that he's can stay healthy and that he's effective while he's pitching. And we certainly hope that's going to be the case, but I'm not going to sit here and guarantee anything on that either. But it certainly would go a long way to solving some problems if that was the case. But we'll see how it plays out. He obviously had a very significant injury that a lot of people don't come back from, but some do, and if they can show health in the first year, that really bodes well for them moving forward. So he finished healthy in his first year, had a very successful rehab, and so we have hopes for him. In Tex, he's supposed to be back. The surgery was something that we would have preferred not to have to do, but when it declared that it wasn't going to resolve itself, they said, listen, surgery will fix it. And so then he'll just be dealing with knocking some serious rust off as he enters spring training, and he typically is a guy historically that, doesn't hit right out of the gates early. How he gets affected by not hitting for a full year for the most part, I don't know, but he'll be a healthy player that, will be happy to be running out at first base, and thankfully that won't be a position that we have to worry about as we enter next year. We have somebody we know that can man it and give us Gold Glove defense and power as a switch hitter. But his injury, although because of what we experienced this year, you should be careful. I guess you should be careful saying, "Oh, it'll resolve without a problem," because we had so many problems this year that didn't resolve as expected. But in his case, he should be fine and ready to go by spring training and productive, over the course of time as he knocks the rust out.
All the way in the back, last row.
How did you see Hiroki Kuroda's